Okay, so today is a little quick state of the game recap. I'm just going to go through very quickly what Frederick had shown us. I've also got a side-by-side comparison of the new brand set changes, to their free pieces compared to what they are at the moment. So that's towards the end of the video. And, you know, I think going forward, these changes are very, very good. Frederick brought the thunder like he said he would. There's a few surprising things that got mentioned, today. And, I'm looking forward to next week with the skill power recalibration changes. So don't worry, there will be a video on that next week. Now, let's get into this video and see you guys in just a second. So the problems in the game at the moment, there's two rare and unusable things. So, you got gear dropping that, is useless to you. There's no point in keeping it or stashing it. Or you're getting some loot drops that have one good stat on it, but then you're sitting on it for ages and you find it hard to actually, manage your inventory. And the way the game is, designed, it's hard to understand. People struggle to put builds together. Sometimes it's too overcomplicated. I've been there a few times, especially with Division 1, where, you didn't know what you were doing or how you were building pieces of gear together, to synergize. And, how to keep many other things. Again, that's, hoarding some decent gear in your stash, and be at the same time the no satisfaction in god roll items. Like, we've had named weapons in the game, or named gear, and there's on occasion one really, really good one, like we last had the rail splitter, and in terms that was a fairly god rolled weapon at the time, and or if you have that weapon, it is, and how you build around that weapon. And moving on to that last point of, it's too many high-end builds, not enough rolls. Now, the two-tap shotguns, where you can spec into so many high defensive attributes and still have enough red damage ones that, especially in PvP, that is, a problem. That, or you can have enough defensive attributes and have a lot of skill power attributes, so you can still be really tanky with skills and get your heals, but tank damage. So, going forward with all those things being looked at, I think that, especially being able to go up to like 500k armor on builds, with that getting looked into, things are moving in the right direction. So with the package, or what will be coming just after episode 3, with all gear being rebooted, so when that drops, yes, there'll be new gear to farm with good stats. Possibly you may find some god roll ones, but then also the gear that you currently already have, which will be retroactively changed. So I would say, in terms of, if you've got a fairly god rolled item at the moment, and then that new loot system takes effect, it could be even better than what you've already got right now. So that'll be interesting how that works out, especially with new items. They've already hinted that there will be new gear sets coming and stuff like that. So that'll be great. New things to play. Well, we're getting episode 3, so we're going back to New York, and then whatever the future content after that's going to be as well. The new power gap. Now, the game has needed a gear score increase for quite a while, so the fact that we're getting what I'm going to say is a gear score increase is really, really good, and it couldn't come at a better time. So going into year 2, this is the best time for them to do that. You know, just touch on that old gear getting converted now. You know, all that stuff that you're stashing now might be useless. So, you know, you never know. It'll either be good, bad. You know, it's a start all over again, especially if they're going for the power increase as well. So if that's a gear score increase, well, you're going to be relooting anyway. So, and especially with next week when they're touching on, what is it? Recalibration and that stuff. Now that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So looking forward to that. You know, moving on to the next point. So also going forward, how good is a roll? You know, shows god rolls, no max values. Now, you know, your core attribute is either going to be weapon damage or armor. Now, that's good. You know, we're going back to a sort of Division 1 feel a little bit here. Now, what I like is, you know, we're going away from this being really, really tanky with armor situation. And now it's, you're choosing, do you want to be stronger with weapon damage, or do you want to be tanky? And, you know, I think that's a good thing. You know, it's going to show a little bit more build diversity going forward. I mean, I know they said next week they're going into skill power and stuff to do with that. So, you know, a new attribute for skill damage as well. So, you know, skill builds are obviously getting reworked here. Now, they could be a lot stronger. They could be a little bit weaker. But looking at that, I mean, skill builds are potentially going to be very, very good going forward as well. But seeing that composure on the chest piece, you know, while uncover increases total weapon damage by 10%. I mean, you know, that's brilliant, because if that means talents are being reworked as well, so you can be even tankier, and the fact that you call attributes and stuff like that get lit up, you know, with an orange undertone to show that they've got fully maxed out. I mean, it's good stuff going forward, and you never know. There's going to be some very interesting builds, especially for synergizing with teamwork as well. So I think going forward, PvP is going to be, it's going to be interesting, be it conflict or the dark zones. Now the dark zones, especially with this next screenshot with 3 other talents, this is going to synergize teamwork very well. Back in Division 1 where you'd have a dedicated healer, or, you know, you could make a hybrid build with skill power, you know, with a pulse and stuff like that. Now, especially also going into this update where, you know, you can't have what you have at the moment, where if you spec into 100% hazard resistance, then not much is going to happen to you. You know, now you've got to specifically spec into your resistance types. Now, I think pulses might be on their way back here. Now, I'll talk about this a little bit later in the video when I briefly touch on it. But the next screenshot. So yeah, you know, looking at this, you got 3 different builds, right? You've got GILA, Sokolov, and Murakami. Now, it's showing you a tanky build, average DPS build, and a skill build. But when you look at this, you know, it's either, they did say the skill tier part. Now they'll be looking into that in the next week's State of the Game with the skill power side of it. So I'll be interested to see what the skill tier is. But we're looking at the Sokolov and GILA. So one spec'd into armor, one spec'd into weapon damage. So the GILA is showing you a true tank sort of build, right? But look at that talent. Performing cover to cover grants 20% of your armor as bonus armor for you and your allies for 10 seconds. Now, ironically, with these changes, also for damage, the Dark Hours raid that people, you know, there's still players out there that struggle to do that raid. With these changes, I think people might actually be able to do the raid, and foresee if any of these talents make it into the update, that is going to be a very good talent. And again, let's look at the Sokolov one. Companion. While you're within 5 meters of an ally or use a skill, total weapon damage is increased by 15%. So that talent alone, that reminds me of the pulse builds back in Division 1, where, you know, you dropped a pulse, everyone had increased crit damage and crit chance, right? Especially if you had high DPS builds. Now that reminds me of back in the day of that, just a little bit. But then if you look at the skill build side of it, Emphatic Resolve, when you repair an ally or increase the... No, what was it? Yeah, when you increase... I'm totally fucking my words up right here. When you repair an ally, increase the total weapon damage. Well, yeah, it'd be weapon damage and skill damage by 20% for 10 seconds. 5% if self. I may have just butchered that. Now, that'll work out to be a very good support talent. And, you know, with these, you know, reworking talents already is. So, and apparently you'll only get your talents on your chest piece and backpack. And also they're removing damage to elites. So if you've got any gear with damage to elites on it, that will be retroactively changed to like a damage stat or something. So it's good to see damage to elites actually going, because, you know, especially if you're making PvP builds and you're farming in a dark zone or be it the open world, you know, you could effectively have had a more useful slot there or attribute. But I mean, going forward, the fact that we can spec into more damage itself, I think that's one of the good reasons for it going, because you know, there's no point in having that attribute used just for taking out yellow bars when you can take out a red bar or purple bar in about 2 seconds. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good that it's gone. And I've actually made a few comparisons with the new brand set changes to how they used to be. Now, actually, there's one that is still the same, and I'm now going to go into that in just a second. And Fenris reminds me of Striker from Division 1 just a little bit, but hear me out. So with the, you know, brand sets that were showcased on the state of the game, what I've done is I've put the current and the dev build changes, you know, side by side. Now, YAL actually hasn't changed at all with its brand set, you know, set pieces itself. But the third piece, the 40% pulse resistance here, now that could be very, very strong against skill build pulse builds going into that update. Now, the fact that I know the specializations give you, I think it's like 20% pulse resistance anyway. You know, that on top of it, I think, you know, this could be a more utilized brand set going forward. And also moving on to Fenris, the current free piece is 10% assault rifle damage, 10% protection from elites, 20% health on kill. Well, going forward, that's going to be 10% assault rifle damage, 10% reload speed, and 10% stability. Now, the interesting thing is, because that is an assault rifle build, right, that reminds me of how Striker used to be in Division 1. And the only part that reminds me of it is Striker used to give you 20% stability, and you got damage stacks that mainly helps if you had an assault rifle because it had enemy armor damage, right? But there's similarities that remind me of the new way Fenris works to how Striker used to be, just with the stability and assault rifle damage. But I was just throwing that in there because that just reminded me of Striker. So the changes in the guard, it's keeping its 5% total armor, but the hazard protection and pulse skill power are actually being removed, and they're being removed for 8% health and 10% armor regeneration. Now, well, armor regen, same thing really, but I think the reason those changes are because you can stack so high currently into hazard protection, and the pulse skill power doesn't really get used very much, and plus people are using GILA guards with True Patriot to get themselves up to like 500 700k armor as it is. I think that's why those changes have taken effect, plus with the skyrocketing stack of hazard protection. So I think GILA guard it'll still be a really good, like, say, tank build, for taking damage and being able to restore your health and stuff like that. So those are interesting changes going forward. And now we're going to go into hardwired. Okay, so currently the hardwired set has 20% skill power, 3 pieces tampered proof, so your pulse sensor, turret and hive would electrify enemies that got nearby, and the 4 pieces feedback loop. All in all, if you make a turret Seeker Mine build, this is actually a really, really good build with BTSU gloves. It's changing over to this. Now, the 2-piece is 10% skill haste, and the 3-piece is repair skills 10% and 10% skill damage. Interesting. I assume going into the next update that skill power is going to be, rescaled in such a way that it's easy to come by. So I know they're talking about that, skill power stuff next week anyway, but interesting nonetheless. It still keeps feedback loop and feedback loop circuit. Now, increased skill bonus of feedback loop from 10% to 50%. So I would assume that's if you don't already have a talent on your chest piece or something, that takes effect. Interesting. I can't remember how they said that works, but interesting change. And that's just a little brief summary of everything from State of the Game today. And yeah, if you like the video, be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So peace out.